It was just after midnight when Jace and I stepped out of the dimly glowing all-night diner on the outskirts of Blackridge. The place still smelled of burnt coffee and overcooked fries, the kind of scent that clung to your clothes long after you'd left. We'd spent the evening reminiscing, dumb stories from our teenage years, stuff only brothers would remember or misremember. I teased him like I always did. It was easy. That's the thing about growing up with someone. You build a language out of sarcasm and old injuries. As we passed the fogged diner windows, I caught my reflection trailing beside me. Dim, distorted by moisture and neon. Just one silhouette. I didn't look long enough to see if Jace's was there too. We made our way down the slick sidewalk toward the car. Jace started to slow. I turned to joke. Maybe something about the sausage links being radioactive, but his face had gone pale under the streetlight. He pressed his fingers to his temples, jaw clenched. "You good?" I asked, trying to sound light. "Too many of those diner eggs?" He didn't laugh. He staggered, bracing himself with one hand against the low wall. "No. Something's wrong. I feel like I'm spinning." His voice was faint, like it had to fight through something heavy just to reach me. Then he collapsed. I caught him before his knees hit the concrete. His breathing was shallow. His skin, cold and damp, like the night air had gotten inside him. "No jokes now," I muttered, dragging him toward the car. "We're getting you checked out." I got him into the passenger seat and buckled him in. His head lolled against the window. I slid into the driver's seat and checked the rearview mirror. My face stared back, pale, wide-eyed. The passenger seat was just visible in the reflection, and empty. I blinked. No, just fog, angle, darkness. I shook it off. Then I floored it. The tires screeched as we peeled onto the road. The fog had thickened, swallowing the streetlights and muffling every sound. The world outside was washed in a pale bluish haze, like we'd slipped into a dream, or a place pretending to be one. The emergency bay appeared like an island in the fog. Blackridge General, lit up in harsh white, too clean and too quiet. The building felt like it was holding its breath. I skidded to a stop near the sliding glass doors. They opened with a hiss, but no one came out. I rushed around the car, yanked open the passenger door, and half-lifted Jace from his seat. He didn't stir. His skin was cold. Inside, the lights were too bright. The air smelled of antiseptic and something sweet and spoiled, like reheated food and old gauze. I shouted for help. "Hey, I need help!" My voice echoed down the hallway. Loud. Too loud. A nurse and a security guard appeared almost immediately. Their expressions were neutral. No urgency. They didn't ask for his name. They didn't ask for mine. They helped me lift him onto a gurney, though it felt like I was doing most of the work. "You'll need to wait here," the nurse said. Her tone was gentle but final. "Someone will come speak with you soon." I opened my mouth, ready to argue, but something in her voice, mechanical, like a phrase repeated too many times, turned me around. The waiting room was small, too small. It smelled of chemical cleaner and burnt coffee. Plastic chairs lined the walls beneath flickering fluorescents. At the far end, sat a reception desk behind a clouded pane of glass. The receptionist behind it didn't look up. Her waxy fingers tapped the keyboard in slow, deliberate strokes. A few others were scattered through the room. An old woman murmuring into her scarf. A man in a threadbare coat staring at the floor. A teenager scrolling on her phone with glazed eyes. No one moved. No one looked up. A muted news broadcast flickered on the wall-mounted TV above the receptionist. The captions glitched. The video looped the same 5 seconds twice. Above the desk, a panel glowed faintly. Now serving. Number 33. It didn't change. Beside it, the wall clock ticked erratically, its second hand jumping, pausing, skipping ahead, like it couldn't remember how time worked. I dropped into a corner chair. The plastic groaned. The back dug into my ribs. The kind of chair designed to punish anyone who stayed too long. As I shifted, something crackled beneath me. I reached down and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. Yellowed, brittle, forgotten. I unfolded it. The handwriting was jagged, slanted, written in a rush. Rule 1. Avoid making eye contact with the receptionist between 2 a.m. and 2:30 a.m. I glanced up. She hadn't moved. Creepy wax lady gets a time slot, I muttered. Rule 2. If you pass the reception desk after 2:30 a.m., greet the receptionist, even if she doesn't respond. That's not ominous at all. Rule 3. If a visitor arrives asking for directions, do not help them. Cool. So we're anti-hospitality now. I skimmed the rest. The list spiraled fast. Locked doors, power outages, sudden chills. Even something about the courtyard after 4 a.m. Then one line caught my eye. Rule 10. Reflections don't lie. Memories might. I stared at it for a beat. All right, I said softly. Now we're getting philosophical. At the very bottom, in smeared red ink. Trust me. I learned the hard way. The paper felt suddenly heavy in my hand. Then I heard it. Noah. A whisper from the hallway. Noah, help me. I looked down at the list again. Rule 4. If you hear your friend's voice calling from the hallway, do not leave the waiting room. Noah. His voice again. Faint. Distant. Help me. I clutched the paper tighter. My eyes dropped to Rule 4. If you hear your friend's voice calling from the hallway, do not leave the waiting room. I didn't hesitate. He was my brother. Of course I went. I stood. Each step toward the hallway landed too loudly. The floor tiles echoed like metal, the sound bouncing down corridors that felt longer than they had any right to be. The hallway stretched ahead, flickering lights stuttering above me. One bulb flared, then dimmed to nothing. Another buzzed like a dying insect. Noah. Closer now, like it was just around the corner. I turned back once. The waiting room hadn't changed. The others still sat perfectly still. The old woman with her knitting. The man in the coat. The girl with her phone. Not blinking. Not shifting. The receptionist didn't look up. It was like the room had paused the moment I left it. Like I wasn't supposed to be out here. I moved forward. Every door I passed was cracked open, just enough to let darkness spill out. Some of them pulsed faintly, like the lights inside were breathing. One door creaked as I passed, and I didn't look inside. Then, one stood wide open. I stopped. My heart pounded behind my ribs like it was trying to escape. Inside, under a buzzing overhead light, stood a man in a hospital gown. His skin looked gray, damp. His head jerked side to side in rapid, violent spasms, so fast I couldn't make out his face. The motion made my stomach twist. A low, wet gurgle came from deep inside him. I didn't move. The door slammed shut, all on its own. I stumbled back, nearly tripped. My breath came in ragged gasps. My hands were shaking. Noah. Again. Further down now. Always further. I kept going. Another room. Another open door. Inside, a figure in a lab coat stood hunched over a table. His surgical mask covered his face. His hands moved with slow, mechanical precision. He raised a bone saw over a patient's chest. The saw hovered. Then it began to descend. The patient screamed. I stepped back, just one pace, and the room was empty. No doctor. No patient. Just dark stains on the walls and the buzzing light overhead. And somewhere down the hall, Noah! I pressed forward, each step heavier than the last. The air had changed. It was thicker now. Damp. Heavy. Like a basement full of old water and mold. It clung to my skin, crawled down my back. The hallway curved slightly, even though I hadn't seen it curve before. The lights above me buzzed erratically. One blinked out entirely. Another dimmed to a sickly yellow and began to strobe in a slow, nauseating rhythm. Then I felt it. A whisper, just past my ear. I spun around. No one there. But the air was colder behind me than it had been seconds ago. I turned to the next corner and stopped. From the top of a nearby doorway, a clump of long, stringy black hair spilled downward, wet-looking, motionless, hanging like vines. Someone, or something, was just around the frame, waiting. I didn't breathe. A single eye peeked from behind the doorframe, black, glossy, unblinking. My heart lurched into my throat. The eye held there, watching me, then slid out of view without a sound. I crept forward. Every step felt like trespassing into something that did not want to be seen. Then I saw her. She was clinging to the ceiling. Her limbs were bent the wrong way, elbows too high, knees twisted outward. Her arms were splayed like a spider, stretched between beams. Her hair hung in long ropes across her face. Then her head turned. Slowly, and her eyes locked onto mine. She dropped. Silently. Her hand brushed my shoulder on the way down, ice cold and sharp. The skin where she touched me went numb instantly. It felt like she'd taken something with her. I ran, shoes squealing across the linoleum, heart thundering in my ears. I didn't stop until I slammed through the door and back into the waiting room. Everything looked the same. The receptionist still typed. The others still sat in place, frozen, mannequins in clothes. But I was not the same. I dropped back into my chair, breathing hard. My heart wouldn't settle. The paper was still clutched in my hand, soft now from sweat and gripping too tightly. I scanned it again, almost afraid of what I'd find next. Rule 3. If a visitor arrives asking for directions, do not help them. I looked around the waiting room. No one had moved. The old woman still clutched her knitting. The man in the coat still stared at the floor. The girl with the phone still hadn't blinked. Not one of them had shifted since I left, since I came back. The receptionist never looked up. She just kept typing. Then someone near the vending machine stood. A man in a wrinkled sweater. I hadn't noticed him before. "I've been here for hours," he muttered. "I'm leaving." The receptionist didn't react, but a voice echoed from down the hallway. Calm, flat, toneless. "You can't leave until you've been discharged." The man froze mid-step, looked over his shoulder. "But I haven't even seen a doctor." "Exactly." He sat back down. The doors hissed open. A man walked in. He wore a long charcoal coat, pressed slacks, polished shoes. His face was narrow. His smile was mild, but something about it made my skin crawl. He walked slowly into the room, eyes scanning the seated figures like he was looking for someone specific. When he saw me, he smiled wider. Then he walked toward me. Each step was too smooth, too practiced. "Excuse me," he said pleasantly. "Could you help me find the ICU? I think I took a wrong turn." My throat dried instantly. I shook my head. "Sorry, I can't." He tilted his head. "It's just down the hall, isn't it?" He took one step closer. The paper in my hand crinkled as I gripped it tighter. His voice didn't change, but the lines in his face did. The smile stretched. Too far. Too thin. His teeth were too white. Too even. Too many. I stood quickly, knocking my chair into the wall. "I can't help you," I said again. "I'm sorry." He stared at me for a long moment, then turned, slowly, and walked toward the reception desk and passed through it. Not around, not behind. Through. His body shimmered faintly, like a heat mirage on pavement. And then he was gone. I looked at the others, still frozen, not even breathing. The clock on the wall ticked once. 1:58 a.m. I looked back at the list in my hand. Rule 1. Avoid making eye contact with the receptionist between 2 a.m. and 2:30 a.m. And suddenly, I could feel her eyes on me. 2 a.m. The second hand on the clock ticked forward with a sharp, deliberate click. The change was immediate. The room felt wrong. The ceiling lights dimmed slightly, just enough for shadows to thicken. The air turned heavy and stale, like the room had been sealed for years. Even the hum of the vending machine in the corner seemed to stop. My instincts pulled my eyes toward the front desk. I looked, too fast to stop myself. The receptionist was staring directly at me. Her face hadn't changed expression because she didn't have one anymore. Her mouth hung slightly open, her jaw motionless. Her eyes were all pupil, black, swallowing, like they wanted to consume my reflection. I whipped my gaze away. Too late. My muscles locked. I sat bolt upright in the chair, the paper in my lap vibrating with my breath. My fingers dug into the armrests. From behind the partition, I heard the chair scrape. Then, footsteps. Stiff. Wrong. As if something mechanical was being forced to move like a person. Click, drag, click, drag. The sound grew louder. Then, impossibly, closer. I heard her pass through the glass. It didn't crack, didn't slide open. It just let her through. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I focused on the feel of the chair beneath me, the sting in my fingers, the crinkle of the paper in my lap. Click, drag, click, drag. I could smell her, like preserved meat left too long in sunlight, like burning hair and formaldehyde. She was behind me now. So close, I could feel the chill rolling off her skin. Every nerve in my body begged to move, to run. But I stayed frozen. The footsteps stopped. For a long, painful moment, there was nothing. Not even my own breath. Then, silence gave way to normal sound again. I opened my eyes. She was back behind the glass, typing, like nothing had happened. The others in the room hadn't moved, not an inch. The second hand ticked again. 2:40 a.m. I stood carefully. My knees were weak, and my vision throbbed at the edges. I unfolded the list in my hand. Rule 2. If you pass the reception desk after 2:30 a.m., greet the receptionist, even if she doesn't respond. I turned, cleared my throat. Hi, I said. Quiet. Dry. She didn't react. I didn't wait for her to. I walked a slow, shaking circle around the waiting room, afraid to sit again. The lights flickered once, and the buzzing returned, louder this time, like it was underneath my skin. Then, the temperature dropped, abrupt, icy. Not like AC, like breath. Rule 8. If you feel a sudden chill, do not look over your shoulder. Something was behind me again. This time, it wasn't breathing. I walked faster. Not running, not drawing attention. Just fast enough to feel like I wasn't standing still. The chill followed me like a shadow I wasn't allowed to look at. I kept my gaze ahead, shoulders tight, arms close to my sides. The lights buzzed overhead, The hallway made no sound except my own footsteps, until I heard them. A second set. Softer, trailing exactly behind mine. I froze. The second set stopped too. I moved again, and it moved with me. Each step I took mirrored, but always just half a beat late. My breath caught in my throat. I tried to listen harder, but the buzz of the lights pushed into my ears. Click, 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 step for step. I rounded the edge of the waiting room again. Nothing had changed. The people were still statues. The receptionist still typed. The clock hadn't ticked in 30 seconds. I sat down slowly, forcing calm into my limbs. The cold behind me thickened, but it didn't sit down. It just lingered. The air around my shoulders felt crowded, like something was waiting for me to move first. So I didn't. And after a long, long minute, the chill began to fade. I stayed still, didn't breathe too loudly, didn't blink too much. Not until the automatic doors hissed open behind me. Someone walked in. It was Jace. Or it looked like him. Standing near the door, upright, awake, his hoodie unwrinkled, color back in his cheeks, like nothing had happened. "Hey," he said, casual, calm. They let me out early. Relief punched through my chest so fast, I nearly lost my footing. "Jesus, man, you scared the hell out of me." I stepped toward him. "You collapsed. I thought..." He waved a hand. "Yeah, they ran a few tests. Nothing major. Guess I just needed a nap." He walked past me and sat down in the plastic chair beside mine. It creaked under his weight, and yet something was off. His voice was right, his face was right, but his timing was wrong. His cadence was just a little too smooth. He didn't slump, didn't fidget. He just stared straight ahead, like he was mimicking what sitting looked like. I told myself I was just being paranoid. Too many hours in this place. Then the hallway lights flickered, and a nurse pushed a gurney past the desk. There was someone on it, pale, hooked to monitors, face partially covered, unmoving. And it looked like Jace, exactly like Jace. I turned to the figure beside me. The chair was empty. No indent in the seat. No sound when he left. He hadn't moved. He just stopped being there. The nurse noticed me watching her. She gave a tired smile. "Stable," she said. "Still unconscious. We're keeping him monitored for now." She didn't say a name. She didn't say your friend or your brother. Just him. I nodded, but I didn't sit back down. Instead, I looked across the room toward the hallway mirror. Partially fogged, warped by light, only my reflection stared back. Time got weird after that. I remember the wall clock reading 3 a.m. Then the next time I looked, it said 5:55. I hadn't moved. No one else had either. But the lights had changed color, just slightly. more yellow than white now. The floor tiles looked a shade darker than before. The air felt heavier, like gravity had picked up. I felt hollowed out, like something had scraped behind my eyes and left the rest of me empty. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Measured, heavy, confident. A man stepped into the room. A security guard in a clean uniform, broad-shouldered and calm. Neatly trimmed mustache, bright eyes. He looked out of place in the best possible way. Human. Normal. I nearly cried. "Sir," he said kindly, "it's time to leave. The ER is closing for non-patient visitors." My entire body locked up. I knew that line. I turned slowly toward the wall clock. The second hand ticked. 6:01 a.m. I exhaled like I hadn't breathed in hours. Rule 9. If a security guard tells you it's time to leave, check the clock before listening. It's only safe after 6 a.m. I nodded. My legs moved on autopilot. I followed him through the sliding doors, out into the pale blue morning light. Jace was waiting just beyond the glass. He looked tired, but not injured. His hands were in his pockets. His hoodie was wrinkled now. "Ready?" he asked. I didn't answer, just walked with him toward the car. The outside air felt too still, like a stage set left up overnight. We got in. I turned the key. The engine rumbled to life. As we pulled onto the road, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Only my face stared back. Jace wasn't reflected, not even a flicker. I looked to the side. He was sitting there. I looked back at the mirror. Still just me. I didn't say anything. I just kept driving. We pulled into my driveway just before sunrise. I don't remember most of the drive. Just cold air and empty streets. Jace didn't talk much, just stared out the window. Said he felt tired. I told him I'd make coffee. He smiled at that. Inside, I tossed my keys into the bowl by the door, shrugged off my jacket, and went to the bathroom to splash my face. I turned on the light. The mirror was fogged. I wiped it clean with my sleeve and stared. I was alone in the reflection. I glanced behind me. Jace stood right there, leaning against the hallway wall. But in the mirror, only me. No haze. No trick of light. Just me. I looked down at the sink, my thoughts starting to swirl. Birthdays, photos, old arguments in the hallway, shared Halloween costumes, hospital forms. I tried to remember one with his name on it. Just one. Tried to picture a single photograph with both of us. One that didn't feel patched in. But there was nothing. No memory that held still under the weight of inspection. No one else ever said his name. Not the nurse, not the receptionist, not even the hospital itself. I looked back at him, my chest tightening like a wire being pulled taut. "My brother?" He tilted his head, just a little. Then calmly, softly, "What brother?" The words gutted me. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. He blinked slowly, deliberately, mimicking the motion. Then he smiled, Too wide. Too certain. Too practiced. A smile that had been practicing. My hand brushed something in my pocket. The paper. I unfolded it with shaking fingers. The rules were gone. All but one. Rule 10. Reflections don't lie. You do.